I'm Russ Elliott. I am the director of the Washington State Broadband Office, an office of 1.5. First thing we need to start to discuss is that broadband is now a community up discussion. It's no longer a provider down discussion. What we have to do is make certain that communities start to quantify the conversation in a way that we can measure it. Too often we have these conversations around, well, I've got poor internet or my internet's crummy or whatever, and I can't quantify that. And until we can, I don't think we can be intelligent in the conversation. So what we've done in Washington State that I'd like most of our residents in the state to know and support is we've stood up a mapping initiative that allows us to map and quantify what your internet connectivity is at your home. You know, and our mission and vision in Washington State is 150 symmetrical by 2028. That's a very aggressive goal. And so, you know, for them to understand what that means, for them to understand how aggressive that is, and for them then to understand how we would pursue attaining that deliverable, you know, by building communities that have, more scalable and future-proof broadband. The discussion around speed is an interesting one when it comes to whether you're connected or not. I defer to application-based discussions. And I think what we talk about today is 25.3 may be adequate for today, but are we going to base all of our future infrastructure growth on what's adequate for today? Our initiative here in Washington State is to build for the next generations, to build next century cities, right? Our challenge is to really make certain that we're honoring, the folks that will be inheriting these networks. And 25.3 will not have the capability if we continue to demand the connectivity we demand now at our local levels to sustain the type of applications we're going to see here in the future. Currently, you're seeing COVID has changed to 25.3 in that you've got a person working from home, you've got a person studying from home, and you have a person also trying to entertain themselves all at the same time on a 25.3 circuit. You're seeing that those speeds are very challenged by this homebound environment we're in right now. So I would contend that though they may be adequate for some of the needs we have today, the synchronicity of speed will be more important going forward, where we're going to have the ability to upload the type of data we're going to need for healthcare and for education and for work. You know, these are going to be things that I don't think we even know what the demand's going to be. Will we be able to attain universal access to broadband? The way I look at it here in Washington State is, that's a dollar question, right? And how are we going to find those dollars? Now, Washington State's not going to have any dollars anytime soon. So, we're going to have to figure out where those dollars come from. It also will take a tremendous amount of collaboration between public and private players. This industry is built solidly on private, revenues and private dollars and private infrastructure. So we have to have those conversations around public-private partnerships. And if we aren't starting those conversations, you're not going to get anywhere down this road. So we have to have those public-private partnerships. And then finally, in my opinion, that everybody does have to realize it isn't everyone problem, not a rural problem, not a poor person problem. This is an everybody problem. And COVID has really shined a light on that well for us now. When you talk about the fact that you do have to, potentially work from home, school from home, do those things in different rural areas, it's going to be an everybody challenge to get the workforce, to have your students succeed, to have health care. I mean, we have to have this as a basic need across this country. The other thing, too, we have to keep in mind here is if the carriers today aren't willing to have those conversations and we're not able to have the successful public-private partnerships, there's going to be disruptive technology that's going to come down the pipe. And when it does, who are we going to partner with? Are we going to partner with the people that have sat back and pushed and raced against this all day long? Or are we going to open our arms to somebody that comes in with some disruptive technology and says, we can solve the problem, let us help you? I think those are conversations that need to be had right now because some of those technologies are right on the cusp of happening. Yeah. And Washington State's in an interesting situation. We have a lot of those companies up here talking to this broadband office about beta testing. And I'm going to tell you right now, they're compelling. And, you know, if you're a carrier that's pushing against this a little bit and you know, not really coming to the play, you know, coming to the sandbox to play, it's going to be really simple for me to say, yeah, well, you weren't there when we needed you, and now you're all of a sudden wanting to step up because there's competitive pressures that are going to change the dynamic of this conversation. It'll be a hard one to overcome. You know, that when that bus leaves the terminal, watch out, it's going to get interesting. You know, there's one thing to talk about the cost to build. It's another thing to talk about the cost if we do not. And I believe that there's an exponential cost to if we do not to our rural lifestyles, our rural living in this country. There's going to be a significant cost to a bigger divide between the haves and have-nots in this country. And we can't afford to continue to divide. We have to come together and agree that this is a critical infrastructure, and that when we're not riding on the roads and we're not in our schools and we're not in our libraries, that the critical infrastructure really is this broadband infrastructure. And we need to invest in it just like we do roads and highways, because what would the cost be if we didn't have roads and highways that were, you know, passable at this point in time? You know, so we have to. Healthcare is a big one with regard to where technology is going. None of us can even fathom. There are probably some people out there that can, but for the most part, we don't even know where the ball is going to be, where the puck is going to be with healthcare. We don't know what kind of virtual reality is going to happen, what type of other things are going to come through the pipe that will allow us to age and stay at home. When you think about the cost right now of us having to put people into central living arrangements and pay for that for those that can't afford, I think there's a conversation needs to be had here with some really bigger brains than mine in a room that says, what if we allowed people to age at home, and we didn't have to take care of them in these central care facilities, and they could actually have the type of care and connectivity at these homes, and what would that do to our Medicaid systems in our states? What would that do to some of the budgets that, you know, you could reverse the hundreds of millions of dollars per state that are spent on that? You know, one of the biggest drivers for me has always been the Native American nations in this country. And I have worked quite a bit with tribes in Colorado and New Mexico, then in Wyoming, and now I've come to a state that has 29 federally recognized tribes. And I wake up every morning thinking about how I can help those folks help themselves, how I can be a support for their need to continue to advocate for better broadband across these reservation lands. And a lot of these lands have been highly, you know, ignored and by everybody, you know, when it comes to providers or by state budgets or, you know, by federal monies that come down the pike. So I feel it's incumbent on me to try to be the technical assistance change agent for those folks, to allow them to have the opportunity to see there is an opportunity for change. And when you do that and you see the change you can bring to those people's lives, it's one of the most rewarding things that I can imagine. You know, in Wyoming, we had the Wind River Reservation, and to see them come on it and go and attack the challenge by building their own fiber to the home network that they run. So the Wind River Reservation, Wind River Internet now, you know, no longer are they needing anybody to fish for them. They've learned how to fish, and they're doing it really, really well. And they're going to have fiber to all their tribal members soon, you know. And that, to me, is a huge success. I'd like to see that across this country. So, and that's one of the big things for me, that I want to get across is that we are unique as states, right? Each state's very unique. I've now worked in Colorado, New Mexico, Wyoming, and now here I am in Washington State, right? Each one of them is very unique in its makeup. And for the federal government to continue to think they can stand up their traditional funding programs and solve the problem is, in my opinion, a little bit of a definition of insanity, continuing to do the same thing and expect different results, right? So there needs to be a big advocacy on behalf of a large number of bodies that sit back and say, look, the states are becoming tacticians, we're becoming the surgeons. We understand this at a level of detail that they'll never understand at the federal side. Get some of those monies distributed to the states, allow the states to be, you know, tacticians with those funds. allow us to identify those things that will make the needle move better in our 150 symmetrical journey here in Washington State. We're not a 25-3 state. 25-3 is unserved in this state, right? So we're a 150 symmetrical state, and allow us to continue to try to build to that, instead of funding these 10-1s and these 25-3 networks for the next 10 years. Allow us to do what we think is best work in the state. And, we'll go to the collaborative efforts of public-private partnerships, and we'll figure out how to honor the private capital that's already sunk here, but you can't do it at the federal level with a blanket policy. You're really going to have to bring it down to the states and allow the states to be able to